Chair recognizes it's about after 4 o'clock and that we have a quorum, and I call the meeting to order. The first order of business is approval of the minutes for the July 18th meeting. Has everybody read the minutes, and do we have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Say the minutes are accepted. The next item, the next two items are really update on the construction of Cedar Creek LLC hangar. Both hangars now have certificate of occupancies, and both hangars are being used, and both fuel farms are being used. So that's a milestone in the airport. We, the kind of the standing argument we'd have, or the standing joke we had, it would be finished before Labor Day. He just did make it. So anyway, so both fuel farms and both hangars are in use. Okay. Any comments? All right. The next order of business is our procedures are to have a nominating committee. The nominating committee meets, puts an officer slate up, and then we put that officer slate out there for today, and then we vote on it next week. So I think Chip is Vince is chairman of the officer of the. So anyway,
I'm
Vince.
one of them.
Okay.
We met. Actually, we canceled our meeting last month, so we didn't get together. So we got together today, and we have a recommendation. The chairman's job here takes a lot of time, and Joe can attest to that part of it. The vice chairman's job is less, but still takes a lot of time. The treasurer's job is somewhat reading a report at the meetings, because the treasurer's work is really done by the city. So here's what Chip and Will and I want to put on the table. We'd recommend that we leave the slate of officers exactly like they are for our upcoming next 12 months. And that would be Joe as a chairman, Pam as a vice chairwoman, and Ray Hicks as a treasurer.
Okay.
But we would recommend in that, and I'm going to put all this for motion, that 9 months from now, we reconvene and come up with a slate of officers for the next year. And then that allows 3 months worth of transition time going, if any changes are in there, of someone to change over and give time instead of just overnight, make a change.
Okay, is that a motion, or I mean, what do we need to do, Josh? To just.
Well, I mean, the main thing is to make the motion.
I make a motion to accept the committee's slate of officers for 2017, 2018, and to have the committee reconvene in 9 months to select a new. And
that'll
slate
be
of officers.
June. Is that right, Vince?
June.
Okay. And I think that's a great idea. Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. Update on the status of the East Side construction project. The project is complete. I mean, the money, there's still the retainage out there. As Vince pointed out, there's probably 7 or 8. There's 5 places where the asphalt has buckled, and that's part of a punch list that they're repairing now. They actually had to dig up like 20 by 30 and then repairing it. The final walkthrough is Friday the 29th with Volkert and with the state for acceptance of the east side. So I'll send anybody's interested in walking through, seeing it. But things they had left to do, they had to trim some of the asphalt off on the edge. They had to plant grass. Had to plant grass on the shoulders, and they had to replace those asphalt places. So Vince, if you're available on the 29th, I would appreciate you walking through with me.
It's a week Thursday, week Friday.
Week Friday.
Yeah.
Something, okay.
Can I ask a couple of questions about that? Sure. We don't really have or if we do, I'm not aware of it, a maintenance agreement to cut grass around that.
I go to the construction meetings. I don't go every week, but I go about every other week. And I brought that up. I think that John Walton is responsible for they're responsible for the grass growing. I think they're responsible for a year for keeping the grass on the east side cut.
You think so?
I told them they were going to look into that. they've been cutting it, they've been cutting it so far.
Well, they should be responsible
Yeah.
till they finish construction, for
Yeah.
sure, but I don't know if they're gonna come back and cut grass, but that's something we need to look at, because
Okay.
we don't want the weeds to start growing
Okay.
into our asphalt, since we didn't get our funding to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
right
yeah,
into
I got
additional
it.
asphalt, during the next year.
And if not, I mean, we can certainly just add it to our scope of work with our existing landscaper. But I mean, he was like you, he kind of raised his head up. I'm not sure we're gonna do that.
Well, we need to be proactive of that, or we'll lose some dollars that we'll have to pay again
Okay.
to get it back to where it was if we don't keep
Okay.
that grass out of that asphalt. And
All
it's
right.
gonna start on the edge.
Well, we'll bring that up. I mean, that's on the table. I left it with Johnny Walton last time we met.
He should leave it perfectly ready to
Yeah.
be cut, for sure.
Yeah.
He should probably cut it a few months extra, since he's a
I mean, he
few
ought
months
to,
late.
because, maybe we could, yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to stay on this for a minute.
Okay.
Can I stay on this subject?
Sure.
So, back to what Vince was saying about the grass cutting, and are we going to are the gates gonna be permanently locked now? And then, other than just cutting the grass, I mean, do people need to drive on that pavement to keep, I mean, it's gonna sit there for, we know it, a year
At least a year.
without being used.
Well, it's completely fenced now and the gates are locked.
Okay, so that'll be covered, but I just want to make sure that everything's in a stable condition. And then the second thing that we need to start thinking about, or continue thinking about, is for phase 4, is we really need to start working on the city over the sewer system out there. We kind of,
Yep.
not by our own choosing, but we've got an extra year now to talk about the force main or a gravity feed system out there. And I really think that we need to, because that will play into the grant. And how much
You
money it
saw the
takes.
emails from Kevin Morgan with the FAA project manager. He said, y'all need to think about how you're going to sewer it. I mean, he's pretty adamant that they don't want to pay $450,000 for sewer it.
I don't disagree with him.
And so I told Bobby, Bobby's got a lot on his plate right now, and I said, the city has a test. If it's 500% more for sewage versus a pump or then and I think it would. We did the original estimate was like $85,000 to do the.
But now, was that residential? Isn't that kind
I don't know.
of put into place to keep from the residential's customers having to pay so much for grinder pumps? It could cost $7,000 to $10,000 to put a grinder pump system in a residence. And I'm sure it's maybe 5 times that for a commercial entity. I'm not sure if it'd be that much, but I think that the commercial entity can afford the force main system. The intent was to not drive up the cost of new home construction to a point where it was unaffordable and be a burden on the homeowner.
Okay. Well,
I think we're gonna have to educate the city to the standpoint of, if you look on the west side right now, we've got, Chip, you help me out with this, south of the south big hangar, how many toilets do we have? 2? 4?
Well,
2.
on
Well,
the
we've
T
got,
hangers.
we've
Not
got 2 and the
including
state
corporate
troopers
hangers.
have
So
2.
okay, so
Yeah,
4.
not counting the corporate hangar, so now we'd have 5, 6, 7.
And those are grinder pumps.
yeah, all grinder pumps.
Everything on the west side is
North
grinder
side.
pump, but on the east side, it doesn't make sense to put in a gravity system when it's just gonna be completely underutilized for maybe 15 years, 20 years, I
We're
don't
probably
know.
gonna have that same
10 or
number,
15 years for sure.
5 to 7 on the other side, and no one's gonna be taking a shower.
And the flow
Right.
in those hangars is probably a third what it is on a house. I mean, you don't have showers, you don't have cooking, you don't have dishwashing.
It's probably a 10th. 'Cause,
Okay.
yeah,
Probably a tenth. So you really, and when you size the wet well, I mean, it was a challenge to size.
So you're saying maybe even for a commercial property, it shouldn't even be more, it shouldn't cost any more than a residential?
Should.
And that'd be
Exactly.
a
overkill.
residential grinder pump, that
Would-
sits big around,
would-
it would be way overkill.
Way
for any of
overkill.
those hangars, other than an FBO hangar. It would need a commercial grade.
Well, I'd urge you to talk to your local council members.
Okay,
We are.
we are. So anyway,
And I brought that up when we had the
No,
meeting
you
in here
did.
about
You-
the west side, and Sherry Lee was there and said, we need to sit down and talk about that again, because I think the city's looking at what's the real need is incorrectly.
Yeah, and we talked about, Volker Volker, I think, was pretty much an advocate for the grinder pump. They just ran into kind of a brick wall with the city. Okay? All right, again, another discussion item. Will, you want to talk about development on the west side?
Just a bit. Joe and I met at a meeting that Sherry Lee called, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
2 weeks.
And Lee Lawson attended.
Vince was there.
Were you there? Okay. And Lee Lawson kind of brought us all down to earth on the value and potential of the west side of the airport. It's not a prime site, according to him, compared to other available sites in the area. The topography is a problem, the distance from the interstate and other things. So he sort of brought us down to earth on value, but that doesn't rule out development there, of course. And you've got some updates. You've talked to Lee.
Lee called. One of the things that came away from the meeting, other than the reality check, was that Lee suggested that he has a developer in upstate New York that is interested in doing some spec buildings in Baldwin County. And that guy's, I think, coming down here in the middle of October to look at the site. And he asked me to basically to find out how much it would cost to make that site level, 20 acres of that site to be level. And I've asked Hutchison, Ralph, and Moore to do that. Be cut and fill. It wouldn't be new dirt. It has to be relatively level. It doesn't have to be like the east side. So I've got them. And I don't think they do some stuff for us individually. They've done some work on the west side before. I think they've got the tools to do it. So I'll bring back. I told Leo I'd give him that number, and that way that the developer will know what his true all-in cost will be to.
Why wouldn't they look at the east side as well, the plot south of the
east side?
The development.
I think the east side I think that's the best piece of property in
yeah, it wouldn't be.
We're not.
It costs a lot more. But.
Yeah, we're not giving that away. We're going to hold that dear, or that would be my recommendation. Would be to get the really, wait till we get somebody we really want on that east side.
So you're saying you really don't want this person? How do you know you don't want this person?
Well, I want him on the west side.
You don't know what he might offer. You don't want to turn him away. You show it to him.
We're going to show it to him. And Lee is bringing him down. So I told him I'd get a 20-acre site, relatively flat, and see how much it would cost, and we'd know what our all-in cost would be for land. Okay?
And we're going to need to know what we think the east side's worth also, because once he sees it, he's going to prefer to go there.
Exactly.
I would.
Okay. Number 6, one of the things that we need to consider, and we do this about every 3 to 4 years, is upgrading our airport minimum standards. And last time we did it 4 years ago, Chuck Zunk was chairman, and Pam took the lead on this, and she's wanted to take the lead again. Ray Hicks provided some great comments, and I think we need to just take this opportunity while we have this, 9-month respite, if you will, to redo those. So, having said that, I'd like to. Pam said she would take the lead, and Chip, could you work with her to redo the minimum standards? And the minimum standards really control everything. So, we just need to make sure we all understand the nuances and.
So the potential of all the growth on the east side.
East side,
for architectural paint consistency and everything else, we need to address that.
And then there are a lot of things that we don't have in our minimum standards for usage fees of other than fuel that are in Mobiles, they're in Gulf Shores.
I wouldn't mind doing a side-by-side comparison of what they have in Gulf Shores.
I'll help you do that. I'll help you do that cost comparison, because I've done some of that before. There are revenue sources out there we're not touching now.
They've had a lot more experience with growth and expansion than we haven't, so we could tap off of their experience. Vic Roberts, I'm sure, will be more happy to help.
Theirs needs a few words corrected in it, because I've discussed them with Vic personally on my lease, but they got a pretty good, a very good outline to go by.
Okay, so Chip and Pam will work on that, and then maybe report back in November. Is
Yeah,
that
and
fair?
I think we need to probably have Ray's input, because he had some pretty good
He had some good
insight
ideas, yeah.
on some
Yeah.
issues addressing minimum standards that he sent out.
And Josh too. Josh can help too. I mean that. Yeah. Okay. So it'll be Ray, Pam, and Chip on the committee. Okay. Got that. Okay. All right. Moving on. Item number 7. This with a lot of fanfare. This passed with Jack's help. We were able to accept the $66,243 engineering money that we got from engineering from reimbursement from the FAA for the east side. Did Bobby bring up anything? I was unable to attend. Did Bobby bring up anything that I was unaware of at the meeting? Okay. All right. So kind of what this was the FAA at the last minute kind of they reimbursed us for the engineering costs for the money that we didn't get. So, I mean, the plans and specifications we can use next year on phase 4. So it wasn't entirely wasted. I did calculate we lost there were about $12,000 to $13,000 of money that we're not going to recoup, and that's everything from advertising to the disadvantaged business plan to the actual contract preparation.
Bids and everything.
And that's all. I mean, that's all
ready to go.
It's all ready to go. So, well, that's probably $12,000 that we lost. So anyway, but Jack, I do appreciate you rallying the troops and getting that done.
No problem.
Next report, again, a lot of reports. Report on the National Association of State Aviation Officials. Chip, are you going to?
Yeah, I attended it every day they were here. The conference registration started on Saturday, and the decision made due to Hurricane Irma was not made until Thursday to continue. And once they felt comfortable, it wasn't coming. So because of that, it resulted in probably about a 17% less attendance than we were planning on. Obviously, most of those people came from Florida. And these are kind of Pam's notes, but the attendance was down. We're going to conduct a debrief with NASAO and ALDOT on it, and how they felt things went and how everything worked out. Also, Pam was going to work on obtaining from the city the taxes generated to compare against the estimated economic impact that the conference had. We had a booth that the Airport Authority shared with the city's Industrial Development Board and the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce. And I think it was well received, a lot of attendance and a lot of inquiries. We had a lot of compliments from the attendees about the hospitality and the charm of the city of Fairhope. A lot of conversations, people plan on coming back to visit, on a non-business time just for tourism. And we did have one aviation firm that I met the couple that has it. They had a display booth there. I'm not sure, but they talked with Pam at length. And I don't know if they talked to Lee Lawson, but they're interested in a possible expansion of opening up an office for their business on the Gulf Coast, and they're looking at what we have to offer. And the industrial board, and we'll follow up with them. Good working rapport between the NASAO and ALDOT and the City of Fairhope, the Industrial Development Board, and the Downtown Merchants Association, and Eastern Shore Chambers of Commerce, Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce, and the Airport Authority, all very well coordinated, good effort. I thought it was a good program. I thought it was very successful. I thought it was very well received.
I'll second that.
What do the couple do that are interested in maybe locating here?
It is. I'd have to go through the booths and find out. I'd have to look because there were several exhibitions there. But a lot of them are people that like paint runway striping. A lot of them do runway paving, and it's all airport related type. So it's some type of airport related business. But I just met them once in talking. They had been talking to Pam, and so anyhow.
Thank you, Joe.
Tell them we got flatlands or wetlands.
Whichever you want.
We got both. All right. We started, number 9, we started including a kind of a flight line manager's report. And the purpose here is to kind of keep up with those things that we're working on. Maintenance at the airport is a ongoing program. Seems that we fix something and something else breaks. But anyway, this is Joe. You want to go through this list real quick?
Yes, sir. On the placement of cameras on the west side, we've done a preliminary spec on that location. We need to come up with the size of the hard drive. We need to figure out what we're going to do for that, and then how it's going to be funded as far as what areas the airport authority will cover, which areas Continental Motors will cover.
I hadn't seen a number yet.
Okay.
I mean,
that's what we have to
Okay.
on and figure out what, how many cameras, the locations.
Okay.
One of them is going to be at the south end. Is that going to work off Wi-Fi, or we have to it's going to be hardwired, figure out how the signal gets to the recorder on the hard drive. But I can provide it to them. Repairing the concrete, you saw the concrete where the fuel trucks are parked. The rebar is showing after it rains, the water stands.
You could puncture a tire.
Right, and then the aggregate, when it breaks loose and as the water penetrates, it's coming up and flooding out onto the ramp, which causes the flood issue. Water leak on the skylights, the contractors came out last week and they said that the screws going through the skylights is where the water is coming in, so they're going to be fixing that.
Did they repair it?
They were working on that, and I haven't seen them come back out yet to finish up, because it was on both sides of the north or the south hangar, where the engine maintenance shop is and the avionics shop. And the helipad, the prime location would be where they're launching now. There's 2 tie-down spots, but that's part of the land that we're leasing. So if we could work out something with the state as far as leasing that area right there, because the reason that'd be a prime location, because if you move it over to where it used to be, you're taking up the tie-down spaces on that side, but you're also creating a hazard for a road wash, moving aircraft around, and possibly flipping them over.
How do we make that decision? I mean, do we formally ask Continental how much it's going to cost us to? And I'd like to be responsive to the public safety.
Right.
I mean, they're a good tenant. I like them being there.
Yes,
how do we move that forward?
We go out and speak with them, speak with the state, speak with the public safety down at the airport, and talk to the pilots. Is this where we?
No, and I'm asking what Continental want to have that.
Oh, to have it, just for them to have that cut out.
Yeah.
We would have to discuss that. We get Mr. Stromberg and go over this number.
Okay. Well, could you work on getting me a number for next? I'm really tired of not having a number. Okay. Thanks. Okay.
The damage sign, I spoke with Roger Watkins. He's the owner of Lightning Aviation.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
He said just fix it and send him the bill.
Okay.
And I can hand carry it to him, or because I know Roger.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
he said he'd take care of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, we just need to get where do you get that sign built? Made.
Oh, we can purchase it in Leo Murphy.
Yeah.
To fix the lights, we could probably get it.
Okay.
So I'll contact Leo and get a price. You want to get a price on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, just hold on. And that's everything on this list.
Okay, well, I added a couple more. Replacement maintenance of real lights and PAPI lights. We had a great when Leo was here. We had a series of very good conversations, and I'd like to sit down sometime in the next couple of weeks and kind of come up with a formal plan that we keep those, keep those going forward. Maybe work with him, maybe use Allen Electric some, but not as much as we do now.
Right.
And figure out just a formal plan to do a better job of keeping all the taxiway and runway lights and the PAPI lights and real lights.
And Leo had a big project to do after this, but he told me that he would get with us and work out some figures. If we wanted him, I guess that's a decision we'll have to make as far as maintaining the runway lights. He did offer us a deal, but we could buy our bulbs from him for cost.
At a minimum, I'd like to buy the bulbs from him, because we don't have any. We buy them from Orlando now, and we get 120% markup on them.
And he was able to get all of the directional signs fixed.
Yep.
The circuit boards, we put the system in 35 years ago, said they're unnecessary. They're $700 per board, and they're susceptible to lightning strikes. And he was able to just bypass those, and the lights work great.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's the reason I haven't pushed to get the directional signs up, because I knew those, okay, that's really good. That's probably $4,000 in savings there.
Yeah, he told me it was about 6,000 that he saved just by doing that.
And that's what we need to think about, whether, do the way we're doing, or look at Leo and something else we probably need to think about. And just having a weekly assessment of the runway lights at night.
Well,
And then, I think, obviously, we get it from pilot reports.
Yeah.
I think we could do that a little bit more efficiently and do it ourselves, so then we can be a little bit more proactive, instead of someone saying, hey, these lights are out, and it takes a week or two to get everything done.
and we're a little bit, I'm in a walking group, and I'm always getting embarrassed, well, your lights are out. Well, okay. So, I'd like to be more proactive.
I think we need to do that.
Quit walking around those pilots.
Joe, y'all closing at 8 o'clock, right?
Yes, sir. And it depends on the volume of business. If of course we have aircraft come in, or they call, hey, we had the governor's jet come in, and they were delayed leaving, so they don't want to be there till about 9:30. So I just stayed and waited for them.
But could we work out something where somebody gets on the golf cart once a week at 8 o'clock?
Yes, so I've already gotten with Houston, David, and Brian and Philip, my full-on guys, that we'll do a weekly at night when you start to drive around the golf cart. And I've got flags.
That's great.
Like engineers' flags, so any lights that are out, we mark them so we know which ones are out. Not serviceable.
But
I
y'all routinely refuel until 8.
Sir?
You refuel until 8 o'clock.
Yes, sir, unless the customer calls, if we know they're coming, and then we'll stay and take care of it.
Anything else? I think the light discussion is and we just need to memorialize this and move forward with it. Okay?
Yeah, if they give us a weekly report, and they can ride the golf cart around there in 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
we'll know every night when they leave.
That's right. That would be great. And we could proactively get them. The other thing is when you talk to Leo, it's important to have bulbs in stock.
Yes, sir.
Because the most frustrating thing is for somebody to come out there and we spend $100, travel, for an electrician both ways, and he doesn't have the bulb.
And
So-
of course Kyle was taking care of that.
Kyle,
He's taking care of that.
and I'm not cutting Kyle out. Kyle can change a bulb with the best of them.
Right, we just have to get the stock, that's what we get with Leo, and he can give us a list of what light bulbs and the cost and everything.
Okay.
So we'll have all that on hand.
Joe, anything else?
Joe, I've forgotten if I ever knew, do you have self-service by credit card after hours on?
No, sir, we do not.
You don't? You do not?
The tankage isn't on the accessible.
Okay. Number 10 is a treasurer's report. Ray's not here, so I'll briefly give the treasurer's report. It's really 3 parts of it. First in your package is our year-end August 31st financial statements. Again, this is 11 months. Our year-end September 30th. From an income statement. You don't want to look at the FAA money that comes in and out, but we probably made $15,000 of recurring revenue for the first 11 months. I do want to call our cash balances are like $570,000. We've got maybe another $75,000 to $80,000 of construction expenses, the retainage, if you will, to pay. But we go into 2017 in a pretty healthy position. I would like to I would like to call your attention to as always, we basically show you the ground maintenance and the and things that break, and you see the replace runway lights, and then the bushwhackers monthly cuts. We try to do 7 to 8 cuts a year at about $3,400 a cut. There's almost 400 acres out there, so it's a pretty big job. But anyway, that's bushwhackers. So those are what I print out for you, because those are really the only things that are really non-reoccurring, if you will. Any questions about that? go back to the last page. What I've tried to do is I basically tried to develop a budget. And our revenues are pretty straightforward. And I've done two things. I annualized our 2016, 2017. That's the column on the right. And I basically took our revenues on top. I annualized our revenues. Fuel is between $1,500 and $2,000 a month. City of Fairhope appropriation is going to be standard for the next 7 years, next 3 years at least. FBO Continental rent we've got an escalation clause in that. It went up last December. It's almost $13,000 a month. Public safety rent is $660 a month, and then there's some minor interest. So basically, our reoccurring revenue is about $41,000 a month. Okay. Our expenses are insurance, travel. I mean, we probably spend $2,000 a year in travel, bank fees, legal services. We are pretty reasonable. They stay pretty constant. This year, we do have under miscellaneous expenses. We did expense all those legal fees with the bond issue, almost $55,000 of legal expenses. Electricity, pretty straightforward. Again, the things that actually that are not truly manageable or lumpy, if you will, are the general airport maintenance, the maintenance of airport grounds, and the professional services. They move around a little bit. So, but we were under budget for last year, but pretty significantly. And I budgeted. I tried to budget within. In those frameworks for this year. So, any questions?
I noticed general maintenance is up 41% on the budget.
Yeah.
For 18. And you let them know that was wash repairs, lights, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean that's what it normally is. The lights, the AWAS repairs, we replace some asphalt out there. Those are the kind of things that we do. I don't have a handle on what that that's the wild part, if you will. It's been as high as $85,000. I could have put another column in there. 2 years ago, we had to repair those doors on the north hangar. I mean, those were big doors, and they were expensive. We had to take them down, redo the tracks. That was a big item. So that's the wild card and everything. Will.
Got some cushion.
Yeah.
Okay. And I noticed the public safety rent was down just a few dollars.
Really?
On the budget versus actual last year. Not much.
I bet it's I don't know that. I should know that. I know they had an escalation clause and theirs went up too. Only thing I could think of is it's sometimes they don't, I mean, and don't take this the wrong way, the state does pay. Sometimes they get things in the wrong month, and so we could have had it in the wrong month one time. So it could have been a...
That's a fixed amount on shown.
Well, I mean, no, he's talking about the annual, he's talking about the 2016 looks like it's one payment higher. You know what I'm saying? That maybe
I got you.
it's one payment higher than it was.
So
you know.
that's a time frame issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is, off by $32 being one payment.
Yeah. And we did have an escalation, and that did escalate for the year. We had all our lease contracts now escalate with a
Cost
cost of living every 2 years.
Consumer price index.
Income from hangars other than the public safety hangars, the T hangars?
Those are, that's a ground lease. That's the ground lease, and those are the two ground leases.
That's not T hangars, right?
Did it say that?
He asked about T hangars.
There's no, I mean, in the Continental rent, the $13,000 a month is all the T-hangar rent, okay? Any other questions? I'd like y'all to look at this next month. I'd like to approve the budget. And then again, what I try to do is anything over 3 or 4 thousand. I do things if I have to do them, okay, if they have to be fixed. But things that are $4,000 to $5,000, I'll try to get a polling, if you will, of the board. But normal paying electricity bills, things like that, we just do. And then if there's a maintenance or another yard cut or whatever, I bring it back to the board for your approval. But if something breaks, I try to poll and get a consensus, if you will, if we should fix it. Joe?
And Joe, I did have one more item. The striping, we need to repaint down the south end, all of the
I agree.
Which in addition to that, we probably need to start planning on budgeting for, the power wash bought us some time, but.
Yeah, that was in there. I didn't, yeah. And then.
Joe's right, you can't see the stripes on the taxiway stand.
And one more thing on the street sweeper. What's gonna cure that is we're gonna have to seal the ramp, because that asphalt.
It's gonna just keep doing the same thing with the seal, yeah.
It's every day I'm picking up.
Bobby, is that an FA qualified project to get the
All the south ramp, the north
So the
ramp.
T-hangers and the south ramp,
All
the
that
asphalt is
is
never sealed, so we have just all this sand that comes up out of it, and it's abrasive to props.
Right.
Because what's gonna happen is that water, the ramp is not sealed in the south, all that ramp area, in the north and the south, all that water seeps down into the asphalt, and it's breaking the substrate, it's breaking the substrate, so it needs to be sealed. In the future, if that keeps going, it'll just deteriorate.
Yeah.
Yes, well, short answer to the question is yes, and then what we do and when we do it is a different story. I think there was already on the books in the near future to do some mill and overlay on the north ramp. It's been a while for that one. So it was set to be, milled up and go back down with a little bit delayed based on the east side phasing. And the south ramp, I think it was recently overlaid, so it's probably more in line for a seal coat on those guys' feet.
Question about they did bring the street sweeper out there.
Yes,
And
yes.
do you know how long they were out there? About how long it took them?
2 days.
2 days to do it.
That I saw, they were out there, I saw them out there on two separate occasions, because they weren't able to finish in one day. The guy, something happened to the truck and he had to leave, but he came back.
Okay.
Yeah. But over two.
Can we cut the video?
Yeah. Okay.
That's a long time. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be 2 days. I told Jack it'd be 2 hours.
Give me the keys to that.
It has been, I will say that, it's been a big improvement.
Well,
I'm glad they had an equipment breakdown. So it's a couple of hours each
Yes.
day, right?
okay. All right. Any other questions about the budget? And I welcome comments over the next, but again, this kind of keeps us on track of what we're doing. The final thing is there's a PowerPoint presentation, the page before the last, about, one of the things we've always wrestled with is having a planning horizon to come up with capital projects. And this is, I put these together. Again, we don't have a lot of discretionary money, but we have $40,000 to $50,000 a year that we can spend on improvements, if you will, not maintenance, but improvements. And I put this list together. I'd welcome your thoughts and comments. Chip?
As far as what we need to allocate, or?
Well, no, if this is I'm not committing to do this. I'm just saying this would be a list of kind of a priority, if you will. If we have the money, we'll do it as if we can.
We can, yeah.
Would we be required to do this environmental study on the east side?
Yeah. What I'll kind of explain that is we really don't have to do an environmental study. Because basically when we did the work to get the east side done, the Corps of Engineers, we did all the permitting and whatever at that point in time. What we did on where the 2 existing hangars are is on our own dime, we did environmental core samplings so that where those new fuel farms were going to be, if there was contamination, we would not be pointing fingers. We said, this is your problem, Leesor. So I would like to do that. I'm not going to do it until we actually get phase 2 money, But I'd like to do that. I think that's insurance that we can, whoever builds that fuel farm's responsible for it. If they have a leak, we can point and say, this is your problem, not ours. And your environmental, because that's a pretty expensive project that, it's $12,000. I consider insurance.
It's been farmland all of its life.
Yeah,
Let's find out if there was something there, establish ground zero.
Exactly, would have a ground zero. And we did that for both new fuel farms or both new fuel tanks on the west side. The other thing, and this is on the last one, is I'd like to put in $5,000 a month into a money market account, if you will, and start saving for a general aviation terminal. Not much, that's, again, my goal would be, when we get phase 4 done, be in a position to at least talk to someone about building a general aviation terminal. And so right now we've got commitments from Dr. Egerton for about $350,000. If we, 12 months from now, we put $5,000, we'd have $60,000 we wouldn't have had before. So.
And that's on the east side.
On the east side. So, I'd like to do that. I could put more, but
Never hurts to save money for down the road. Can always change your mind.
Yeah, we can. It's not going away. It's just,
that's right.
that's
We put somewhere else.
Yeah. So that's the only one of these things that, everything else here is we're going to do as we have the money to do it. But the $5,000 a month, I'm going to start setting that up as we go.
You're going to propose that in your budget?
Propose that in the budget. And the way I look at that, Jack, is we won't have those $60,000 in legal fees that we had last year, or $55,000 in legal fees that we had for the bond issue.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky, that's right. Thank you, Jack. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Joe mentioned that, and Roger Lightning will pay his bill. That's not a question. But should we just say, hey, Joe called and Roger said, hey, just do it and send me a bill. Roger might question what that bill's going to be. Shouldn't we find out first and tell him what that bill is, so then when we do it, he knows what he's going to pay up
Yes,
front?
sir, I'll do that. I talked to Roger, and I'll give him a call tonight and let him know.
I'm not saying anything about Roger. Roger will pay his bill, but
Right.
it'd even be fair to him to say, here's the
This is
price
how
we
much
got.
it is. Right.
And it'll surprise you how expensive it is.
Yes, sir, I will give him a tell him that. I'll get with Leo, we'll get a figure for him.
Okay.
That way he'll know what to expect.
Okay. I have one more thing under the treasurer's report. At the end of the month, right now, the way our process works is we get 7-8 bills a month. We get 4 or 5 sources of revenue. They come in, we have a little box, if you will, in the city treasurer's office, and I sit down for 2 or 3 hours a month with Deborah Smith, and we pay bills and make deposits and talk about airport stuff. She's been great. Deborah is leaving the city's employee in September, and I would like to go out and I'd like to get a bookkeeper, if you will. I know someone who I've worked with in the past, Kathy Kilnady, to do something what she does. She'd pay our checks, she'd put our financials in QuickBooks. We would basically have what you have now. What these do is after the end of the quarter, these are basically loaded into the city's consolidated financial reporting system by Jill and Lauren. But what I'd like to do is, I think I can do it for under $300 a month. Use the bookkeeper to basically pay my bills, pick up the mail, reconcile the bank statements, do the things that Deborah's doing now. Not to say that we won't have another treasurer at some point in time.
And we might have one Monday.
We might have one Monday. And I would welcome the chance to visit with her. I've been told that might be something that the city would like to charge us to do. That time.
Who told you that, for the record?
Well, Jack,
Was it a council member?
It was not a council member. It was not a council member. But anyways, I mean, we need to pay bills and we need to reconcile bank statements, so.
I wouldn't be in favor of it if the treasurer was gonna continue to do it for us. I would think it would be pointless unless we're charged, and I don't think that you can be, I think that that would have to go through the council.
Okay.
It may not be that that has to go through council, but we want to look at the prescribed duties of the treasurer.
Okay.
If we're already putting all our financials in there, who's making the expenditures right now on behalf of the airport authority?
Well, I mean, I'm signing the check, and the treasurer has to sign the other, with two-party checks.
So
She'd still have to
the
sign.
treasurer is expensing the funds and receiving the revenues.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that, then you introduce another bookkeeper.
And then the other part of that is you'd have to get your auditor's agreement to do that. I mean that right now we've got a pretty good system, but.
I mean, it makes sense if we knew we were gonna be charged, but to me, it doesn't
Okay.
make sense if we're not gonna be charged. I wanna hear from everybody else too, I mean.
Would it require a separate audit, since our books are audited with the cities right now?
That would be a deal killer. I mean, if our new auditor would not accept my bookkeeper to consolidate the statements, I wouldn't.
Because I think the city paid an auditor to audit the books.
I think they
that
did,
the city was
maybe.
already keeping for us last year.
We
They may have paid, we paid for our portion
we
of it.
paid-
It's
we
just
paid-
a tiny part
Well,
of
it's
the audit.
$10,000.
Huh?
It's $10,000.
Our portion of the
Our
audit was
portion of the-
10,000.
I don't know, what is the
That's a
total audit?
ripoff.
Oh, okay.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I mean, that's $10,000.
Yes, that's a ripoff.
Okay.
Well, then we need to see if we get a city auditor and see what the new rules are gonna be.
And
Before we
Jack,
go out.
As far as I know, the rules aren't gonna change. I mean, but
I'll work with anybody. I've had a great relationship
we're
with
just
Deborah
changing personnel.
and a great relationship with Nancy Wilson, but I need to pay bills, and I don't need to be hassled about doing it.
My 2 cents worth are we need to maybe be prepared to go another route if we have to, but let's wait and see also.
Okay? Chip?
I agree
Yeah.
with Vince.
All right, so with one emotion or anything like that, we'll just table it. I'll give it a couple months, we'll see how it works out, and we'll,
Yeah.
maybe not hear from him again.
Prepare for the worst, pray for the best.
There we go.
Okay? All right, any other business that needs to come from anybody wants to comment?
Joe, we had sent over the terminal area plan update for the April meeting. I know you guys didn't have a meeting for that. There wasn't a quorum for that meeting.
For the July meeting.
August.
August.
And I didn't bring it on this because I felt like we had the next year to do it, since we,
Oh, well, we had got it prepared, and we didn't know if you guys wanted to discuss that, or we brought copies to leave with you guys and discuss it. The FAA is waiting submittal on it. But it's in this grant you're just now signing, so since that's almost a complete reimbursable, they're gonna expect this done fairly quickly. They're gonna want us to open that grant, get your funds out of it, and close that grant pretty quickly. So, it does not have to be done at tonight's meeting if you
can we do it in the October meeting?
Yeah, we definitely do it in October. We got copies, and we can link with you, the board, and you guys.
Well, I sent them to y'all, they were in the package for the
That's all.
August meeting, and I guess I made a mistake. I thought that because we didn't go forward with phase 4, we would just revisit it next year. But no, I see what you're saying. I don't want to redo it again if the FAA is waiting for it.
Bobby, did I read on AOPA or somewhere that FAA is going back and looking at maybe picking up some funds on some other airports this year? Or am I just dreaming?
Probably a dream.
Okay. Did I read on AOPA that Auburn got funding and we didn't get any? Because I'd like to protest.
I did see where Auburn got funding for a new aviation building.
I do know that they got, there was some very, very last minute monies. After they made the decision where you and several airports didn't get your funding for the year, I know there was, once they got to issuing those last minute checks, they found some people couldn't get to them, so there was some last minute funding.
Okay.
But it
So
didn't trickle down.
it wasn't them reconsidering, it was just
No, it wasn't
reshuffling
reconsidering,
what
it was
they
just
had.
at the, I mean, they by law have 11 days to get all their money committed, so. I mean, they sent, well, I mean, you guys, they sent out the grant offer to you guys with the 2-day notice.
And thank our councilman for
Yes.
making that happen. I mean, I think some people had to return the money because they couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I think that's some of the money that got
Really?
banded around was just, they call them up and they give them 2 or 3 days to do it, and they just physically can't get it done.
Any other public comments?
I will make another comment. I think that really in all fairness to the auditor, before our legal fees go up more than budgeted, that we did have we had almost $3 million in FAA grants they had to account for. And I'm looking at a $165,000 budget and thinking that was.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, the auditor doesn't really touch that. I mean, we do pay Volker almost $250,000 for contract management.
Okay, I re-invoke the statement then.
We pay Volker way too much.
We pay Volker and we pay the Volker and the auditor too much.
Just try to keep our legal fees down for 17, 18.
I don't. I know the questions that the auditor asked me. I'd be embarrassed to ask those questions. So I mean, it's not there's not like they're on top of it. I mean, any other comments, Anna?
I'd like
Captain?
to say
Yes.
Hey, you guys probably remember me, Joe, Jack, I'm glad y'all here.
Yes, sir.
The only question I have to ask is in May, you guys said y'all be willing to write a letter to the citizens that are affected by aircraft noise. We all know the mayor tried. We had some backlash and criticism. Is that still on the table? I know there was a hold. Is that gonna happen? You guys worked on it. We loved the letter, and then it all went away.
Will you send the letter that you said you would send and that you drafted?
The consensus of the board was not to send the letter.
So this is what I have a problem with. I almost went into the military myself. We are being labeled as unpatriotic. We're being criticized online for being unpatriotic. Instead of going in the Navy, I went in the Merchant Marines and it worked out for me. What recourse do the citizens of Fairhope have? They're being bothered by this. It's not, I'm starting to get a little upset now, and I'm sorry. This is specifically T6 noise over downtown areas. We don't live near the airport. This is the aerobatic noise. We understand the Navy has to train. I met with Jacob. We hit it off. We're members of the yacht club together. We go drink a beer together. We aren't unpatriotic people. We are just frustrated over the lack of action by our members of government and local community members that don't seem to care that we are upset about it. What recourse do we have?
I'll address your concerns a little bit, and you may have seen a letter that I wrote to a retired commander in the Navy in which I said that the citizens are not unpatriotic.
Thank you.
I don't know if you read that letter.
I did not see it.
I said that the people that are complaining about the noise do appreciate the military. It is, for one thing, you bring up a point that these aircraft, the aircraft that in particular you're complaining about are not even using our airport. They're flying over from Whitingfield and whatnot, and they are flying over the northern reaches of the city, the central part of the city, and the Navy has come here and told us why. They have landmarks, the straight lines of the highways, the coastline of the bay, but they've also said that they've been pushed out of, there is no airspace available. And you've been with me, and we've met with Congressman Burns, representative, and said that, can we find an alternative? Can you move these training flights up into the Tensal Delta, for instance? And, time after time, they came back and they said that they can't because that airspace just happens to encroach upon, I don't know if it's Brooklyn or Mobile Regional, but that's also airspace that's already been claimed by someone. And I've even conveyed your sentiments to Senator Shelby's office, to Senator Strange's office, to Congressman Burns' office, in a face-to-face discussion, not a letter. I mean, sat down with them face-to-face. And, you know, they'll sit there and give you the nod, not unlike we're doing. We're doing the same thing right here. And there's just not a lot that they can do. And I don't think there's a lot of political will to do that. That's the reality. I don't think that when an admiral of the Navy or a general of the Army, if it's Army aviation, or if it's Air Force, and we have just a smattering of planes from the Air Force that come here as well, I don't know that the congressmen and senators have an interest in trying to get involved with what it would take, because the only option that I see would be to open up more airspace, because they've said all along that they've been here for 50, 60, 70 years training, and they've consolidated a lot of pilot training. The Navy's consolidated almost all of their beginner pilot training to this area of the country, and they just keep getting pushed out further and further and further. You know, if you think it's bad here, as you get closer to that epicenter, it's much more crowded. And once again, you know, I've told you, I know that's not what you want to hear, and but those are the reasons that they keep giving us.
And I appreciate the candid conversation. Fairhope's not what it was 50 years ago. It's not even what it was when I was a kid. The town's bigger.
Well, there's no doubt.
It's not T-34s anymore. These are turboprop planes.
That's true, but once again, and then the rest of the country is not the same as it was, and what used to be cornfields may be large cities now, and so, like I said, they're consolidating a lot of the air training, the pilot training that they're doing to this area of the country for good or bad, and you know this authority, we've raised our minimum standards, our approach. Heights, our minimum heights we've raised, and I think that's maybe cut down on touch and goes, maybe even to our own detriment, because now it's harder to attract them to land and take on fuel. Is something that I know that our FBO would love if they would land and take on fuel. So at the expense of our FBO and the airport authority losing revenue, we raise those heights. So I wish that there was an easy answer. And if somebody else can add to this conversation, I think that the letter that was sent to the Navy was harmful to somewhat to the community. I don't think it was well written. And I think that it also may have given the authority cold feet to follow up with that letter that was sent. When you accuse the armed forces of devaluing our property, and I know that you think that it might be, but I think that there's a lot of people that would disagree with that, and it can be taken by people as being unpatriotic, and that we certainly don't want to get that reputation in the airport authority or this city. I don't think that's going to serve us any purpose, and I think that led to the cold feet of sending the letter. I don't know that the letter would have done a lot of good, but we did say we were going to send one to Senator Shelby, if I recall. That's why I did say I have spoken to them in person, and they give you lip service, kind of like we're doing now.
They didn't just do the lip service though, because we saw a response that Congressman Byrne got from a letter that he wrote, and Senator Shelby's office specifically asked us to get our city council and to get any government entity we could to give them written requests so that they have that writing, because that gives them more standing to negotiate.
Negotiate with the military?
Yes. And I realize that that the noise that is happening over our house is not emanating from the Fairhope Airport, and that technically there is no relationship there.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
We do.
Because there are so many people that believe that noise is because of grants that we receive, which is not true, or because they're using the airport, which is not true.
And we work we do what we can to tell those folks, and many of them I think live near the airport. There's several different groups of people that are concerned about these issues. What confuses me is I understand there's cold feet after the thing that Mayor Wilson did and posted on Facebook and got all the backlash. But we know that we aren't unpatriotic, and you all know that too. So you can help dispel that misconception by supporting citizens in the way that you said that you would.
And that we also don't live near the airport, which is what I think a lot of people also, you think that you're upset by the airport, the aircraft noise, well, don't live near the airport, we don't live near the airport.
Yeah, I've seen that comment, which is untrue.
You know, I wanted to be Maverick when I grew up, I wanted to be, that's my favorite movie, still is.
Isn't there a lawsuit in process
Isn't-
against the federal government over the military using airspace? I mean, one of the meetings a while back, we had a lawyer from Mobile that said he was gonna be proceeding with a lawsuit against the government over noise issues.
Well, he is a lawyer that we spoke to after almost a year of dead ends in every direction and conflicting information from the military liaisons who won't even.
You want to return my phone calls
speak to
either,
us,
so.
and when they do speak to us, it's frankly insulting the way that
I
they
couldn't agree
talk to
more.
us
Couldn't agree
and
more.
how they give us the runaround. And I'm talking specifically about military liaisons, not about military in general, obviously, like Jacob, there's a lot of good people, we all know that. I guess to me, it's, again, I get why what Karen did would give you pause. What I don't understand is we're not Karen, we're not on a side here as far as that situation goes. You know that what you had in the letter is valid, and you know that our complaints are valid, and you know that people saying we are unpatriotic is invalid. Your letter could help with that misinformation and those false accusations towards us.
Well, I don't think we committed to write the letter. We did commit to consider it.
No,
Did,
no, I believe you committed to write.
This might have been before you came on board, but I think we had a letter that was.
Well, we did circulate a draft of a letter,
Okay.
and then it was the consensus not to send the letter.
After the mayor posted her thing on Facebook, so that's the direct reason, and that's the only reason I've been given. And I'm just saying, you know, is that really a good enough reason to make us move, make us leave Fairhope? Because Karen did something that stirred everybody up, and now everybody's afraid to say, I mean, you know that what's in it is true and is valid.
And for the last 3 years, the Navy has come over and talked with us. You know, at a public forum, people could talk to them, that we could get the issue out there. They won't even take my phone calls anymore.
Right, and since the last meeting they had with citizens was before the noise started over our house.
Oh.
And they have not been back since then.
Do we know why they have? I was under the impression that because there was a potential lawsuit was why they weren't.
That's Randy, I mean, the guy I talked, I mean, I don't really know why. I know that I don't get return phone calls anymore. Or return emails, or, you know, what my expectations are.
They got a new guy, there was a new guy there, Steven something or another, his liaison.
Paul,
And he started, he was strong, he was emailing, and
But he is-
somebody got a hold of him, and now
he is
he's
awful.
It's like, crickets.
And we are very respectful, and we are very like. trying to direct
As we all are. I mean, we're
I'm just saying our tone, it's not like we're like some folks who just like go off the rails, you know, exclamation points, crazy accusations, like we.
No, I hear you.
At the risk of being totally banned from this airport authority in the near future by our mayor. Number one, I agree with everything Jack said. Number two, I agree you are not anti-patriotic. I'm one of them that thinks we should not send the letter, because I personally think the mayor tried to jump the gun and send a letter at the last second when she found out we were talking about sending one. And it backfired. And then it made all of us look bad. And there are people sitting at this table that have been accused of being thieves, thugs, everything else by public media that are totally untrue. However, we can't change what a few bloggers allow people to put on their blog. So
being labeled unpatriotic and.
Right, and we can't change folks that have been falsely accused either, and sometimes it just is what it is. But the majority of people know the truth, so you just go and do your job and move on. So I'm one who's against sending the letter because I think the mayor's letter was detrimental to our whole community, particularly our airport authority and the citizens of Fairhope.
I do understand that. I feel like the Karen versus insert whoever, because I know there's a lot of different issues there, but the citizens are the ones that are losing here, even though I do understand the personal attacks are out of line, and that make me mad also. I just don't know that that's a good reason for inaction on behalf of citizens, because we are not Karen and we are not saying those things back to you.
We acknowledge that, and we appreciate that.
We do appreciate your.
I've only been here 60 years. I lived 6 years on Orange Street, and the rest of them right down the road from the airport. They've been tearing that air up every day I've been alive, and they will not stop. I promise you.
We hear that, and I'm from here too, and we know that. It's specifically the T6s.
Yeah,
The new planes.
I can speak up here. So I'm a Navy reservist. I'm flying the T6 overhead. I grew up in Fairhope. I'm from Fairhope. Just got to move back. I was teaching full-time as a active duty Navy down in Corpus Christi. Just moved back home to my hometown, bought my grandparents' house on Patlin Drive. So live, within like a half-mile of Jay, and met with Jay the other day, or a few weeks ago. And thinking about it since and trying to answer Jay's questions, all that, I mean, I don't think there's really a solution out there, unfortunately. I'm going to tell you. I think none of it's going to change short of convincing Congress to move NAS, Pensacola, and Whiting out to the middle of the desert, which none of us there that work there want to do. We go deploy over Afghanistan and Iraq, and we want to live in these nice places too when we come home. So short of moving the base, which isn't going to happen, frankly. It's just costs too many billions of dollars and lost revenue for the cities that have those bases. I mean, and you might not think it affects here much, but really it does. I mean, there's actually quite a few people that work on. I've been shocked how many. I'm doing it as a reservist. So I drive to NAS Pensacola, hour 15 minutes, a couple times a month normally. There's a lot of guys over there that are SIM instructors who make 6 figures and live in Fairhope, and they're from Fairhope. They're a retired Air Force pilot, or they're they do whatever job. I mean, there's maintainers. There's all kinds of jobs over there on that base. And people actually live over here in the Eastern Shore or Baldwin County and drive to Pensacola to go do those jobs because they're frankly pretty good paying jobs. That bring money to the economy. So you're not going to get rid of the base. That's a congressional action. Next thing would be a change in aircraft, and that's not going to happen either. I mean, the Navy, Air Force combined, this is the primary joint trainer for the armed forces for the foreseeable decades. Usually have an aircraft for a couple decades as a trainer. So T-34 was about half as powerful as 450 shaft horsepower turboprop versus 1,100 in the T6. 3-blade prop versus, four-blade prop versus 3 on the T-34. I mean, they're different aircraft. It is bigger, it is more powerful, it weighs about 3,000 pounds more. It is noisier. But as far as airspace goes, there's just nowhere to go. The range on the aircraft to get the training mission done in your hour and a half, 2-hour flight, you just can't get far enough away. Airspace is fully utilized from Panama City all the way west, over to Biloxi and Gulfport, Stennis Space Center over there. I mean, all the airspace is full. There's a lot of people on the Gulf Coast between Florida and Texas who like airplanes and have private airplanes between all the private airplanes and the military airplanes and the bases. There's nowhere for it to go. We're operating at the same altitudes we have since I was a student in the T-34 here in 2007 and did my aerobatic solo over north of Point Clear section line, which was Point Clear to I-10. Working along the Bay Line because it's a big visual landmark to see. Now, the advantage we have in the T-34 is we can operate higher than we did in the T-34. In the T-6, we can operate higher than the T-34, which helps when we can do that. But some days, for environmentals or clouds or whatnot, you are pressed down to a different area, or it can be something totally unrelated. There's a big thunderstorm buildup over Crestview. Okay, well that Crestview is on the airway, it's not in the military operating area. But when there's a big thunderstorm right there, the commercial aircraft going into Pensacola Regional can't fly that airway. So they have to go through the MOA, the military operating area. When they go through the MOA, whole MOA shuts down. So we all have to drop below 10,000, operate. So it might be totally clear of Baldwin County. You're thinking, why aren't they up there higher and not making noise? Well, the MOA, the whole MOA that spans from Mobile Bay all the way over to Pensacola Bay, that's the operating area above 10,000 feet, it gets shut down, and now we're below 10,000 feet operating over Baldwin County. We can't operate that low over Pensacola or the areas in between, because then you're too close into that Pensacola airspace for the regional jet traffic going in there. So there's all kinds of factors, but we are fully utilizing the airspace, and you'll notice, some days you just don't hear it, and then other days you hear it a lot, and a lot of it is environmental and weather and what ATC takes from us when that happens. And I really don't see, unfortunately, a big improvement for you. I kind of told you all where
And that's why I
you can avoid certain areas. It might be a little better because we use these visual section lines of the Bay Line or Highway 59, but short of that, and when I stand out in my yard, off Patlin and look at them, most of the time I'm looking over at them on the shoreline. They're not operating directly over my house. They're a half mile west over the shoreline. So
Well,
sorry to be a deputy down there and not provide really a help there, but just
thank
that's
you.
the reality
And
of
you
what we're
said
doing.
it, very bluntly, and I'm here on camera, and senators and congressmen could see this, but I think what he's saying is this: we could do more harm to our community and this authority and others by continuing to write letters. And the reality is and I don't care what Senator Shelby said, I'll say it bluntly now, I don't think he's going to do anything. I don't think he can do anything, because he's one senator. If he champions your cause, that I can guarantee you the two senators from Florida are not. And the many more congressmen that live in Florida as opposed to Alabama are not going to buy into. That's the reality. And then once again is, where would they go? It would be billions of dollars to move an air training center, billions. And that's why it's a risk if we do that. If we were to complain about that, I still think it's going to do any good.
Okay.
I do appreciate the fact that you met with me on this. That was the most information I've gotten, because it just feels like for a long time we couldn't get any information.
Anything else from the audience? Okay. Having done, I'll have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. The meeting is adjourned at 5:15.
All right.